fast, where truth moves faster than a Holstein calf. No waiting on some pretty page. We're charting new ground in the digital age. From genomic codes to raw facts, we cut through the noise, no holding back. Not your daddy's dairy news tonight. We're sparking debates with every insight. The ring's not where the real fight's at. It's in the data, in the channel chat. From pasture to processor to your morning cup, we're raising the stakes. Try and get ahead of herd. Yeah! Where the future's more than just a word. Ahead of herd. Come on! The bullvine's calling, let your voice be heard.
Hey there, dairy enthusiasts. Welcome to the Bullvine Podcast, your companion for cutting-edge dairy industry insights. Today, we're diving deep into the seismic shifts in dairy breeding driven by booming beef markets and genetics breakthroughs. Stick around for fresh strategies you can use now.
Hey, we're tackling a really interesting feature article from the Bullvine that's got everyone talking. We're going to break it all down.
Yeah, we're taking a deep dive into dairy breeding's new horizon, profit through precision genetics.
Our mission today is really to distill the most important nuggets, the key insights from this piece.
And turn that into a practical understanding of how the dairy breeding landscape has just fundamentally changed. It really has.
It absolutely has. It's almost unrecognizable in some ways.
Okay, let's unpack this because, wow, the landscape has shifted so dramatically. It really demands a whole new way of thinking about our herds.
It does.
The article, it grabs you right away with this anecdote. Picture this. You're chatting over coffee, maybe at the co-op.
Yep, happens all the time.
And a fellow producer just casually mentions, just sold a heifer for $4,200.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd definitely choke on your coffee there.
Right, because that number just shows how much the whole scene has flipped. It's not some, fluke incident.
No, it's a signal, a big one.
Exactly. It's like a flashing red light on the dashboard telling everyone things are different. The value in dairy genetics has been totally recalibrated.
And that core insight, what used to be a rare premium, now it's almost becoming, well, maybe not the norm, but certainly a market expectation.
Which forces every single producer to rethink their entire breeding game plan. Do you really think sticking to those old strategies is going to cut it in 2025?
Probably not. You really have to think again.
Yeah, the old rules, raise your replacements carefully, cull and churn, milk it out well, those days are evolving fast, really fast.
What used to be standard practice, it's quickly becoming outdated.
You really hit the nail on the head there. That $4,200 heifer, it's more than just a price tag.
It's an indicator, a stark one, of these huge shifts happening.
And what's really wild is we're seeing these two major kind of contradictory trends happening at the same time.
Right, seemingly disparate trends that are both reshaping the industry's economics in ways, honestly, few people saw coming.
So what's the first big one?
Well, the first is what the article calls the replacement inventory crisis.
Yeah.
And the numbers here are pretty eye-opening.
Okay.
U.S. replacement dairy inventories, they're at one of the lowest points we've seen in decades.
Right.
Like under 4 million head nationwide.
Under 4 million. Wow. When was the last time we saw numbers like that?
You have to go all the way back to the late 1970s.
The 70s, so over 40 years. That's significant.
It's huge. It's not just a little dip. It's a deep systemic scarcity.
Yeah.
And you know what happens when supply just tanks like that?
Prices go through the roof.
Exactly, skyrockets. And this scarcity, it has a direct, major impact on what you're paying for new animals.
So what are we seeing on average now?
Replacement heifers are averaging north of $3,000, easily.
North of $3,000.
And those really elite animals, the ones with the top genetics, proven pedigrees, they're consistently commanding $4,000, sometimes even more at the big auctions.
It's just a completely different market dynamic than what a lot of us grew up with.
Totally different. And it forces a completely different approach to managing your herd. You just can't operate the same way.
It really is a wake-up call. And honestly, that scarcity alone would be enough to shake things up significantly. But then layered right on top of that, you've got this other huge trend.
Yeah.
The rise of beef on dairy.
Yeah, that's the second major force. And it's been transformative.
What used to be, maybe for a lot of folks, just a side hustle,
Yeah.
a way to deal with bull calves.
Right, maybe manage excess calves or just an afterthought.
It's turned into big money. Seriously big money for a lot of operations now.
Beef on dairy calves, they're not just a side project anymore. They're a planned, significant revenue stream.
The article really highlights how much that's changed. It says premium values for these calves can top $1,000 per head in some areas.
$1,000. Think about that. For a calf that maybe, 5-10 years ago was seen as a byproduct.
Or even just an expense to get rid of quickly.
Exactly. It's an incredible shift in value perception.
Yeah.
And it means every single breeding decision carries a much heavier financial weight now.
So if we connect these two things,
Yeah.
the super high heifer prices because of scarcity,
Right.
and these really strong beef on dairy premiums.
Yeah, they might seem like they're pulling in opposite directions at first glance.
You'd think, okay, replacement costs are crazy high, so everyone must be trying to make more dairy heifers, right?
That's the logical thought. But what's really fascinating, and what the article digs into, is that both trends actually come from this clever but complex shift in breeding programs.
Oh, so?
Farmers are strategically using advanced technologies now in a way that lets them navigate this new economic landscape. They're basically playing both sides of the market.
So it's not just luck or reacting anymore?
No, it's proactive.
Yeah.
It's using precision tools to make these really calculated choices.
Okay, break that down. What does that look like in practice?
It means producers are using things like sexed semen much more effectively. They're targeting female replacements only from their absolute elite cows.
The genetic superstars of the herd.
Exactly. The ones with the best genetics, highest production, strongest health traits, all that.
And for the rest of the herd, the ones that aren't quite in that top tier for making replacements.
Those breedings are often going straight down that highly profitable beef path using beef sires.
Ah, okay. So it's a very deliberate, strategic choice, animal by animal almost.
Precisely. It's fundamentally changing the decision-making process. We're moving away from just, a blanket breeding approach.
Towards this highly refined, individual animal strategy.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
It's all about optimizing the outcome for each specific breeding.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting then. Because that strategic choice, it leads right to the next big question. How? How are producers actually doing this? This level of precision targeting, it isn't just making smarter guesses, is it?
No, definitely not. You need some serious tech behind you to make it consistently reliable.
Right, accuracy and control are key here.
Exactly. This isn't just about, good intuition or management anymore. It's about harnessing specific technologies that have evolved dramatically. They're way more accessible and effective than they used to be.
So what's the foundation of this new approach? What are the core technologies?
The bedrock, really, it rests on two core advancements that work hand in glove. They complement each other perfectly.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first is the evolution of sexed semen. Just think about how far that technology has come.
Yeah, I remember early on there were big concerns about conception rates, right?
Absolutely. Historically, that was a legitimate hurdle. Lower conception rates made a lot of producers hesitant. The trade-off, gender selection versus just getting cows pregnant, it often seemed too steep.
So what's changed?
Well, today's modern sex semen products, they're delivering conception rates that get really close to conventional. We're talking 80–90% of conventional fertility in ideal conditions.
Okay, and what about sort of typical real-world field conditions?
Even there, you're typically landing around 45–50%, which is a massive improvement over what we saw even, say, a decade ago. It makes it a truly viable option for large-scale use now.
That's a big jump. And what about the accuracy? Getting the gender you actually want?
The accuracy. That's maybe the most critical part, the real game changer. Modern products are hitting gender accuracy rates of 90–97%.
90–97%. Wow.
Is significantly higher than the old standard, which was more like 85–90%.
So that improved reliability, that's what gives farmers the confidence.
Exactly. They can confidently target those female replacements among their elite cows, knowing they've got a very, very high probability of getting a heifer calf.
It shifts it from being like a hopeful guess to a calculated outcome.
Precisely. It enables those really precise breeding decisions we've been talking about.
That reliability is absolutely key then. It takes the gamble out of it, makes it a strategic move. But what if you're not entirely sure which of your cows are truly elite in the first place? How do you identify where to apply that precision tech?
That is a brilliant question. And it leads us directly to the second core advancement, the one that perfectly complements sexed semen.
Which is?
Accessible genomic testing.
Genomics.
Right. Before genomic testing became widespread and, frankly, affordable, identifying your truly elite animals was a waiting game.
Yeah.
A long waiting game.
You relied on progeny testing, right? Waiting years for offspring to prove their parents' work.
Exactly. Years. Or you used phenotypic evaluation, basically judging an animal by how it looked and performed. Milk records, conformation, health.
Valuable info, sure, but slow and sometimes incomplete.
Very slow, often incomplete. Now, though, with a simple tissue sample, you can even take it from a young calf. You get a comprehensive genetic profile, fast.
So you can identify your best cows before you even breed them, before they've even had a calf.
Yes. Long before. Suddenly, you're not just breeding based on past performance or looks. You're precision targeting your replacement queue based on actual, quantifiable genetic merit. You can spot those future high performers with incredible accuracy.
All while, like you said, cashing in on that high beef demand from the other animals that don't meet that elite dairy standard.
Right. It's a powerful combination. You're not just hoping for good outcomes anymore. You're proactively engineering your herd's future with unprecedented foresight.
So when you put these two technologies together, genomic testing to identify the stars and high-accuracy sexed semen to get female replacements from them,
And then using conventional beef semen on the rest for those high-value beef calves.
you're essentially creating this highly optimized dynamic system. It gives you so much more control over your herd's destiny. It's a beautiful synergy, really.
It truly is.
Yeah.
But, and here's the catch, this is where the complexity really kicks in, why it's not just a simple plug-and-play solution.
There's always a catch.
It's a fundamental balancing act.
Okay, explain that.
The more you push into beef production, meaning the more cows you breed to beef sires, the fewer dairy replacements you create for your own herd in the future.
Right, that makes sense. Fewer dairy breedings equals fewer dairy heifers down the line.
And what happens when that scarcity hits? Not just on your farm, but maybe across the industry. And the market for replacements stays tight or gets tighter.
Prices climb, maybe even more.
Exactly, sometimes dramatically. So while you're optimizing for those, potentially lucrative short-term beef profits, you have to be acutely aware of your own long-term replacement needs and the broader market for dairy heifers.
So there's this inherent tension.
Constantly. Between generating your own replacements, maintaining your herd's genetic base, and capitalizing on that immediate beef demand. It's not a set-it-and-forget-it kind of system.
No, it requires constant evaluation, doesn't it? Strategic foresight, being ready to adjust based on market signals and your own farm's goals.
You have to keep asking, am I building my future herd effectively? Am I maximizing immediate cash flow? Or, more likely, how do I find the clever blend of both that works best for me?
That balancing act, that tension, it brings us directly to the next big discussion point.
Yeah, the strategies themselves.
Right. With all these moving parts, the high heifer prices, the strong beef on dairy premiums, this powerful precision genetics toolkit, what are the actual plays farmers are making?
How are they navigating this?
Exactly. Because it's clear that a one-size-fits-all approach just isn't going to cut it anymore in this new landscape. Producers need a playbook. And the article details 3 core approaches.
You're right. And the article lays 3 pretty distinct strategies people are using, each with its own, pros and cons. Let's start with Plan A, the rotational rhythm.
Okay, rotational rhythm, what does that involve?
This is where operators intentionally block out their breeding cycles into distinct periods. So maybe for a few months, everything is focused on breeding for dairy replacements using sexed semen.
All in on dairy for that window.
Right. Then they switch gears. And for the next stint, maybe all the breeding focuses on using beef sires to maximize those beef calves.
So it's like having a very choreographed calendar for your breeding program, dictating the genetic direction at specific times.
Exactly. Predictable batches, predictable timing.
That sounds like it could have some interesting ripple effects, especially for managing things on the farm. What are the main benefits of doing it that way?
Well, one of the biggest benefits, maybe even beyond just managing inventory, is actually improved calf health.
Oh, interesting. How so?
University of Wisconsin extension trials, they documented some really impressive wins in calf health with this kind of all-in, all-out nursery management, which naturally fits perfectly with a rotational breeding schedule.
Okay, explain that connection.
And think about it. If all your dairy calves are born within a tight window, maybe over just a few weeks, you can manage them as one single batch. Same age, same needs.
Right. Simplifies things. Less variation.
And the research showed this strategy specifically slashed respiratory disease cases by 35%.
35%? That's huge.
It's massive. Think about the costs tied up in treating sick calves, meds, vet bills, extra labor, not to mention the long-term hit on their growth and future productivity.
Yeah, a 35% cut in respiratory issues is a major win. For animal welfare, the bottom line, and probably less stress for the farm crew, too.
Definitely. It simplifies your health protocols and helps break those disease cycles.
That's a compelling health benefit. Anything that eases disease pressure on young stock is gold. Fewer sick calves means better animals entering the milking string later.
Exactly. More productive lives down the road.
But what's the downside? There's always a trade-off with such a structured system, isn't there? How does it hit the farm's finances?
Indeed. The main challenge with this rotational rhythm is the impact on cash flow. The article describes it as creating a kind of roller coaster effect.
Okay, roller coaster. Highs and lows.
Yeah. You get these big spikes in income when you sell a batch of beef calves, or maybe a group of dairy heifers if you're selling surplus. But then you have these dry spells when you're in a different breeding phase or just waiting for animals to grow.
So it's not that steady, predictable income month after month.
Not at all. Yeah. It requires really careful financial planning. You need enough working capital tucked away to ride out those leaner periods.
And does this strategy work better in certain places than others?
The article points out it seems particularly tailor-made for places like, say, Wisconsin and Minnesota.
Why there specifically?
Well, things like seasonal labor patterns and maybe even feed costs can align better with this batch approach. You might have more available labor for specific tasks during certain times of the year when you have a big group of calves hitting the ground.
Okay, so it's about leveraging your regional advantages, your environment, your existing resources. What makes it trickier elsewhere, like down south? You mentioned heat earlier.
Down south, yeah, it gets significantly trickier, mainly due to environmental factors, especially heat stress.
Right, heat's a killer for conception rates.
It is. University of Georgia research, it shows dairy cows facing heat stress indexes over 72 for long stretches in the summer. That intense heat doesn't just hurt conception rates. It impacts overall well-being, milk production, everything.
So operators there have to adapt pretty heavily.
They do. They're often forced to shift breeding windows to cooler months, and they invest heavily in cooling systems, high-volume fans, big shade structures, misters, you name it, just to make breeding feasible and keep cows comfortable.
Trying to implement a strict rotational rhythm on top of all that sounds like adding another layer of difficulty and cost.
It does. And financially, even for a typical 100-cow operation, the article estimates this rotational approach needs about $100,000 or more upfront.
$100,000 upfront? Why so much?
To grow those batches of heifers while you're also pursuing the beef payouts, that's a significant chunk of capital tied up in young stock before you actually see the returns. It requires serious financial foresight.
Okay, so that's plan A. Very structured, managing cash flow, health, seasonal factors. But what about producers who want to go in a completely different direction? Maybe lean heavily into making replacements and bet big on that heifer market.
Yeah, that's a totally different philosophy.
Sounds like a different kind of risk-reward calculation. Potentially higher returns maybe, but also more volatility.
Absolutely. And that brings us neatly to plan B. Go big with the heifers. The article also calls it the surplus replacement basket strategy.
Surplus replacement basket. Okay.
These operators, they're essentially putting all their eggs, so to speak, into that surplus replacement basket. Their main goal is to generate a lot of dairy heifers, way more than they need for their own herd replacements.
With the specific goal of selling that surplus into the market.
Exactly. It's potentially very lucrative if the market's hot. Think serious revenue streams. You're aiming to cash in on those high heifer prices we talked about, the $3,000, $4,000, maybe even more per head, turning excess production into significant profit.
That sounds fantastic if those prices stay high and stable. But the article warns the ride's bumpy. What makes it so volatile? What are the hidden risks?
The key challenge is exactly that. Market volatility. Industry observers, they report mixed results. Profits definitely soared when heifer prices were peaking, incredible opportunities then.
Why?
But operators really felt the pinch when prices cooled off, sometimes pretty abruptly.
Because the dairy heifer market, like any commodity market, can swing wildly based on supply and demand.
Precisely. And those swings can be rapid and often unpredictable. CoBank analysts, for instance, they put out a warning that this boon could bust.
A bust? Why?
They predict replacement inventories might actually bounce back by maybe 2027. As more producers, seeing these high prices now, adjust their breeding strategies to make more heifers.
Ah, so if everyone rushes to produce more heifers, the scarcity goes away and prices could drop significantly.
Exactly. What was potential profit could suddenly become a struggle just to break even.
So the real core risk here is market timing. You're investing a lot upfront, betting that when your surplus heifers are finally ready to sell, the market will still be strong.
You're essentially speculating on the market. You're investing substantial capital in raising extra animals you don't strictly need for your own herd, and you're banking heavily on timing that market perfectly.
And raising those extra animals isn't cheap either, right? You mentioned the baseline cost earlier.
Right. The University of Missouri Extension estimates that raising cost is around $2,640 per heifer, from birth all the way to freshening.
So $2,640 just to get her ready. If market prices dip below that or only offer a tiny margin,
your serious revenue streams can evaporate pretty quickly. They can become serious losses or, at best, minimal returns on a very substantial investment and risk.
definitely not for the faint of heart, requires strong nerves and maybe deep pockets to ride out those market downturns.
You got it. It's a high-stakes gamble.
Okay, so we've got the structured rotational rhythm for consistency and health, and the high-risk, high-rewards surplus heifer strategy for market players.
Two very different approaches.
But for those producers who really want to accelerate their herd's genetic progress, like skip years of slow, gradual improvement and just catapult their herd forward genetically.
Ah, yes. For those aiming for rapid genetic gain.
There's a third option, also high stakes, it sounds like. An aggressive move focused squarely on the future genetics of the herd.
Indeed. That leads us to Plan C, the genetic leapfrog.
Genetic leapfrog, I like the name. What's the play here?
This strategy is for farms really looking to make a rapid, substantial jump in their herd's genetic merit. It's like hitting fast forward on your breeding program.
Okay, how do they do that?
Instead of focusing on raising their own replacements over time, these farms often hit pause on that whole process. They might stop making dairy replacements altogether for a period.
So what do they breed their cows to then?
They might aggressively breed their entire herd, or a large portion, to beef sires.
Yeah.
Maximize those beef on dairy premiums. Flood the calf sales with high-value beef calves.
Okay, generate a bunch of cash from the beef side.
Exactly. With the explicit goal of taking that cash and immediately redirecting it to buy in elite, already grown dairy genetics. Heifers or maybe even cows from other top herds or specialized genetic suppliers.
Wow, so they're essentially trading their homegrown, maybe average genetics replacements for external, proven, superior genetics?
That's the core idea.
Yeah.
It's a direct path to faster progress if you can stomach the upfront cost and the logistics.
So what's the potential payoff for such a bold move?
It is bold, absolutely.
Yeah.
The potential reward is pretty significant, though, and very attractive for certain operations focused on genetics. It's high stakes, like you said. But you could literally be skipping years of gradual genetic gain in one strategic purchase.
Years. How many are we talking?
Potentially leapfrogging your herd's overall genetics by a substantial 5 to 10 years in a single move.
5 to 10 years of genetic progress instantly. That's incredible.
If your goal is to have the absolute cutting-edge genetics in your milking string as fast as possible, bypassing the time and resources to develop them internally, this strategy offers that direct, accelerated path. You're buying proven performance, not waiting to create it.
That's a powerful draw for sure, especially if your primary focus is rapid genetic improvement, staying ahead of the pack. But what about the risks? Because bringing animals in always carries dangers, doesn't it? And this doesn't sound like a cheap strategy either.
That's the critical question, managing the risk. And there are two major concerns here that you absolutely have to consider meticulously.
Okay, what's the first one?
The first, and arguably the highest risk activity for any farm, is the potential for disease introduction.
Biosecurity. Always a huge concern when buying animals.
Huge. Bringing animals in from outside your closed herd, even if you're careful, always carries the potential to introduce new pathogens. Things your herd has no immunity to that could devastate your existing animals.
Leading to widespread illness, production drops, huge vet bills.
Exactly. It requires meticulous biosecurity protocols, thorough vet checks, often a robust quarantine program for any incoming animals. You cannot cut corners there.
Okay, disease is risk number one. What's the second major risk?
The second one is purely financial, similar in some ways to Plan B. It's the cost. Today's sky-high prices for those truly elite animals, the ones you'd need to buy to achieve that significant genetic leap, they often exceed the combined savings you'd get from selling your beef calves and avoiding your own raising costs.
So even with the income from beef calves, you might still be spending more to buy these elite heifers.
Very possibly. The article explicitly mentions that the cost of elite animals often outstrips the savings. So while you're generating cash from beef, it might not fully cover the premium you're paying for the incoming genetics. You likely need additional capital.
So it concentrates your cash on buying elite quality. But like any market-dependent plan, it's exposed to price volatility.
Highly exposed. If you buy at the peak of the market and then the price for elite genetics softens later, or maybe if the genetic advantage doesn't translate into the expected production boost quite as planned.
Your big investment might not yield the returns you hoped for.
Correct. It's a cash-intensive strategy that basically trades one set of risks, raising your own replacements for another set disease introduction and market volatility for elite genetics.
So what's really fascinating here is how distinct each of these plans is the rotational rhythm, going big with heifers, the genetic leapfrog. Each offers a clear path, but each comes with its own very specific set of trade-offs.
Absolutely.
It just screams that there's no single best plan that works for every single farm, is there?
Not even close. This really highlights the individual nature of dairy farming. It underscores the absolute need for personalized strategic planning.
The best plan really depends on so many factors unique to each operation.
Hugely dependent on your individual farm circumstances, your personal or business risk tolerance, and this is critical to those regional factors we touched on.
Right. What works great for a big operation in the upper Midwest
With maybe lower feed costs and different labor patterns.
might be completely unfeasible for a smaller family farm down in the Southeast battling heat stress, or vice versa.
Exactly. It's all about aligning the strategy with your current resources, your long-term goals, your immediate cash flow needs, and your specific operating environment.
You have to consider everything: your current herd genetics, labor availability, access to markets, feed, climate.
It's truly become a sophisticated exercise in strategic portfolio management for your entire operation. Every decision ripples through the whole system.
Okay, so beyond those three main strategies for managing the heifer side of things, the article mentions something else: a quiet game changer.
Ah, yes.
Something most producers might not even be thinking about yet for their beef side. An unconventional play that could really move the profitability needle.
This is where we get into some really interesting, maybe less common optimization approaches, truly maximizing every single breeding.
So what is it?
We're talking about the potential of using male-sorted semen for precision market targeting.
Male-sorted semen, so flipping the script on sexed semen.
Exactly. Historically, like 99% of the time, sexed semen has been about getting female dairy replacements, maintain the milking herd.
Right.
But what if you used male-sorted semen to intentionally produce all steer loads of beef on dairy calves?
All steers. Huh. That's a fascinating twist. Why would that be a game changer? What's a specific benefit of an all-male group versus a mixed group?
It comes down to market demand in the beef supply chain, specifically the demand for uniformity and consistency.
Okay.
Feedlots, packers, they love uniform groups of animals.
Yeah.
Why? Because they grow at similar rates, they finish around the same time, and it just simplifies management and processing all the way down the line.
Whereas a mixed sex group, or even one with varied genetics, leads to more variability, different growth rates, carcass sizes, finishing times.
Which means more sorting, more work, less efficiency for the buyer, the feedlot, the packer.
Makes sense. So is there data showing a real price difference?
There is. University of Idaho research found that all steer loads earned a substantial premium. We're talking $5,180 to $6,746 more per truckload compared to mixed sex groups.
Wow. Over $5,000 more per truckload, just for having all steers.
That's the power of meeting a specific market demand for uniformity. It represents serious money, serious extra profit, if you have the right marketing channels and connections to capture that premium.
So intentionally using male-sorted semen for your beef breedings could command a premium that many producers might just be leaving on the table right now.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Simply because they haven't thought about optimizing specifically for the beef market in this way. It's tailoring your output for a very specific high-value niche.
That's a really compelling insight, especially for anyone heavily invested in that beef on dairy segment. Thousands of dollars per truckload is not small change.
Not at all.
But as you keep mentioning, and as with so many things in dairy, where you farm, your spot on the map, it really matters, doesn't it?
Critically important.
Success hinges heavily on location. A strategy that might be brilliant in one state could struggle or even fail in another just because of those regional realities.
This raises that vital question about how geography dictates success. Let's dig into the map matters, regional success factors, because your farm's address profoundly shapes your best breeding strategy.
Okay, let's break it down by region. Where should we start?
Let's take the upper Midwest. Think Wisconsin, Minnesota. This region has some distinct advantages that really align well with certain strategies.
Like what?
Well, feed costs. It's a major expense everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But they consistently run maybe 8–12% below the national average in this region.
Okay, lower feed costs definitely help the bottom line for raising replacements or finishing beef calves.
Makes those ventures inherently more profitable. Plus, think about labor. Seasonal labor patterns there often fit that rotational breeding, that batch approach, really naturally.
Okay.
During planting and harvest, there might be more flexible or temporary labor around, which aligns perfectly with needing extra hands when you have a big group of calves hitting the ground all at once.
So for implementing that Plan A, the rotational rhythm, the upper Midwest is kind of perfect territory. The resources and seasonal rhythms support it.
It's often a very good fit, yeah. Lower input costs, supportive labor environment. It makes that structured, badge-oriented strategy particularly effective there.
Okay. Now, contrast that with the Southeast. You mentioned heat stress earlier. That sounds like a constant battle.
The Southeast presents a totally different set of challenges. It fundamentally changes your strategic options. Heat stress management, like we discussed, becomes absolutely critical for herd health, conception rates, breeding success, everything.
And that University of Georgia data showing heat stress indexes over 72 for long periods.
It's brutal. It's not just uncomfortable for the cows, it severely impacts fertility. So operations there, they have to adapt constantly, installing high-volume fans, adding extensive shade, shifting feeding times to cooler parts of the day.
These are significant investments and operational changes.
Huge investments. And they directly impact the feasibility and the cost-effectiveness of certain breeding strategies. A batch breeding strategy that works smoothly in a cooler climate might be economically really challenging to pull off year-round in the Southeast because of those environmental demands and the infrastructure costs needed to combat them.
You really have to work with the climate or spend a lot fighting against it?
Exactly. It requires constant innovation and investment just to maintain performance.
Okay, what about the West Coast? Thinking California specifically. Unique pressures there too, right? Regulations, labor costs?
Big time. On the West Coast, especially California, labor costs are a massive factor driving strategy. California wages average over $20 an hour, compared to around $19 nationally.
That difference really adds up.
It pushes producers hard toward automation and finding extreme efficiency in every single process. Strategies that minimize manual labor get heavily favored.
But there's an upside too, maybe.
There can be. The West Coast also often has proximity to large premium markets. Think specialty dairy products, niche beef opportunities. This can create chances for producers who can efficiently get their high-value products to consumers willing to pay that premium.
So while labor costs are higher, the potential for higher returns on premium products can offset some of that if you target those markets effectively. Automation and premium market access seem key.
That's often the calculus out west, yes. Efficiency plus market access.
All right, one more region, the Northeast. What defines success there? Often smaller herds, maybe more diversified?
The Northeast, yeah, typically characterized by smaller, often more diversified herds. This usually demands flexibility in breeding strategies. You don't see as many of those massive, highly specialized operations you might find elsewhere.
So it's maybe less about sheer scale.
Often more about maximizing value from a smaller base. But similar to the West Coast, the Northeast also benefits from being close to high-value, often localized markets.
Meaning good animals can fetch a good price.
Exactly. High-quality animals, especially those elite dairy heifers, can command significant premiums, maybe $4,500 or even more at regional sales.
So for a smaller herd there, focusing intensely on producing a few exceptionally high-quality replacements using precision genetics.
And then capitalizing on those local premium markets.
That can be a very viable, very profitable strategy, even without massive scale, quality over quantity.
Precisely. It's about finding the niche and serving it well.
What really stands out to me here, Jake, is just how much there's absolutely no silver bullet, no single right answer.
None at all.
A strategy that kills it in the Midwest might be a disaster, or at least way less profitable in the Southeast. It just hammers home that every single producer has to consider their own map.
Their specific climate, their local labor market, their feed costs, their access to buyers.
When they choose and fine-tune their approach, it's all about understanding your unique operating context and building a strategy tailored exactly to it.
Exactly. This isn't about picking plan A, B, or C off a shelf. It's about a deep, nuanced understanding of your regional ecosystem and how it impacts the economics and the practicality of each breeding strategy.
Ignoring your map seems like a recipe for struggle.
It really is. It's a critical piece of the profitability puzzle.
Okay, so ultimately, all these innovative strategies, rotational breeding, chasing heifer markets, leapfrogging genetics, even using male-sorted semen, they all boil down to dollars and cents, right?
At the end of the day, yes, it has to make financial sense.
So let's talk about the real costs, because that's where the strategy meets the cold, hard economic reality. You can have the most brilliant plan on paper,
But if the numbers don't pencil out, if the investment doesn't justify the return, it's just not sustainable long term.
so let's ground this in the underlying economics. What's the baseline cost we're working with?
This raises that important question about the true financial commitment. Most operators, they know, or they have a good feel, that growing an animal from a newborn calf all the way to a first calf heifer ready to join the milking string, it soaks up around $2,500.
$2,500 just to get her raised.
And that's usually with pretty tight, efficient management on feed, housing, health, everything. That $2,500, think of it as your baseline cost for bringing a replacement into your herd. It's kind of a non-negotiable expense.
But the kicker is each of these sophisticated strategies we've discussed today has very different and often much larger financial implications beyond that baseline $2,500.
Exactly. The strategy itself adds layers of cost and investment.
So can we paint a clearer financial picture? How does that $2,500 baseline get impacted by these different plans? Maybe for a typical 100-cow operation?
Okay, let's try to illustrate that. If we look at a hypothetical 100-cow farm, the numbers start to tell a story.
Right.
For the rotational approach blocking out those breeding cycles we mentioned, it requires roughly $100,000 or maybe even more upfront.
To grow those heifer batches while you're also chasing the beef payouts, that's a significant capital outlay tied up in young stock.
It is. Even if the goal is long-term health benefits and market diversification, you need that capital available up front. And the returns come in batches, demanding that careful cash flow management we talked about.
Okay, that's a big initial investment. What about the surplus heifer strategy, where you're intentionally making extras to sell?
For the surplus heifer strategy, you're investing substantial capital in raising additional animals beyond your own needs. You're essentially building up an inventory of high-value heifers.
But the profitability hinges almost entirely on market timing when you sell them.
Exactly. Remember that $2,640 estimated raising cost? If the sale price when they're ready doesn't comfortably exceed that, or if the market is cooled significantly, that's a serious financial risk. You're holding a valuable asset that's also a significant financial liability until it's sold.
Makes sense. And finally, the genetic leapfrog. That sounds like it could have a very different, maybe more immediate financial profile.
It does, in a way. The genetic leapfrog strategy concentrates your farm's cash on buying that elite quality genetics from outside.
So cash goes out immediately for those premium animals.
Right. While you might be generating income from selling your own beef calves, that money is often immediately flipped to purchase those high-value replacements. And, as we discussed, it also risks price volatility for those incoming animals.
And the article noted the cost of elite animals today often exceeds the combined savings from beef sales and avoided raising costs.
Meaning you could very well be spending more cash than you're bringing in from the beef side, requiring additional capital. It's a cash-intensive strategy focused on premium acquisition, but highly exposed to market swings for elite genetics.
So for all these strategies, there's a significant financial commitment, significant risk, especially because market fluctuations are often completely outside a producer's control.
Absolutely. It's not just about the static cost calculation today.
No, it's dynamic.
This raises that critical point every producer has to constantly wrestle with. One market swing, whether it's heifer prices, beef premiums, or even feed costs, and your carefully laid plans, your calculations, they can change completely. Overnight sometimes.
That $2,500 average raising cost, that $1,000 beef premium, these aren't set in stone. They're moving targets.
Constantly moving. Producers need to be monitoring, analyzing, adjusting all the time. And it's crucial to remember, too, these figures we're talking about, they're direct costs related to calf and replacement management.
They're separate from your milk check, separate from all the other farm operating expenses.
Exactly. This is purely about strategically managing your herd's genetics and offspring for specific market outcomes. And it represents a substantial strategic investment, whichever path you choose.
So what this really means, and the article makes this crystal clear, is that the days of just, milking cows and raising cows as a simple, straightforward operation,
If they ever truly were simple.
those days are long gone. It's just not simple anymore. The dairy industry, especially on the breeding side, has fundamentally morphed from a fairly predictable cycle into this highly complex, incredibly dynamic environment.
That's the undeniable truth. The smart operator today, they aren't just a good cow person or a skilled herdsman. They also have to be a savvy, strategic portfolio manager.
Portfolio manager, that's a good way to put it.
They have to constantly balance that pursuit of short-term cash from beef, the crucial long-term genetic progress for their dairy herd, and their own farm's unique risk tolerance.
And then this is key. They have to be agile enough to constantly adjust, tweak the strategy based on what's actually working in their specific situation and based on those ever-changing market signals.
Because the producers who master this complexity, who can fluidly adapt and strategically manage all these different facets, they're the ones setting themselves up for years of sustained competitive advantage, years of profitability in this new dairy landscape.
It really is a fundamental shift, moving away from primarily commodity milk production
towards this sophisticated strategic, genetic, and market portfolio management. It's about maximizing the potential value of every single animal, whether that's for premium dairy genetics or high-value beef. Recognizing your herd is a dynamic asset portfolio.
So the big question for everyone listening is, what's your play? Are you testing rotational breeding? Are you banking big on the heifer market? Or are you planning that significant genetic upgrade?
It really is time to take these conversations out of the coffee shop and turn them into real-world, profit-driven strategies on your own farm.
It's definitely a challenging new horizon, but an exciting one too, full of potential for those who adapt.
Absolutely.
Okay, Jake, after all that incredible detail and strategic breakdown, let's bring it home. What's the key takeaway? For a farmer listening today, how can they take all this information, process it, and put it into meaningful action on their farm, maybe starting right now?
All right, great question. If you're looking to put this deep dive into action, here's some critical distilled insights and maybe some initial steps to consider.
Let's hear them.
First, audit your precision breeding toolkit. Seriously look at it. Are you fully exploiting sex semen's, nearly 90% accuracy for your absolute best cows to craft those premium heifers?
And are you maximizing the other side too?
Right. And are you simultaneously capitalizing on those beef on dairy premiums, potentially up to $1,000 per calf from the rest of your herd? If not, maybe identify one specific group, perhaps your heifers, or a small group of high-performing cows to pilot genomic testing this month. Pinpoint your exact breeding target.
Get that data. Don't guess.
Don't guess. Remember, with replacement costs hitting $2,500, even $2,600 plus per heifer, every single precise breeding decision directly impacts your long-term bottom line. Precision pays.
Okay, audit the toolkit, use the data. What's next?
Second, evaluate rotational breeding specifically for your context. Think beyond just breeding. Consider those significant disease control benefits. Remember the University of Wisconsin data showing a 35% reduction in respiratory illnesses.
Huge health benefit.
Huge. And this approach can also help manage those cash flow fluctuations. So ask yourself, does my region, my labor availability, my feed cost structure actually align with a batch breeding approach? Especially if you're in a northern state, maybe with those seasonal patterns. Explore how implementing even a partial rotational system could benefit both your herd's health and your farm's finances.
Makes sense. Look at the fit for Plan A. What about Plan C?
Third, strategically consider genetic leapfrogging, but, and this is crucial, with your eyes wide open to the risks involved. Keep a very keen eye on the 2025 market for elite heifers. Understand both the potential high prices and the inherent volatilities.
Know what you're getting into.
Absolutely. Yes, it's a significant upfront cost. And yes, meticulous disease management is paramount when bringing in outside animals. But this strategy can potentially leapfrog your herd's genetics by 5 to 10 years in one smart purchase. If rapid genetic advancement is your absolute top priority, start researching trusted sources for genetics and lock down your biosecurity protocols before you even think about buying.
So, a bold move for bold goals, but plan.
And finally,
and maybe this is the most important overarching point, tailor your strategy by region and constantly adapt your mindset. What thrives in the upper Midwest, with its lower feed costs and seasonal labor, might be totally unsustainable in the Southeast, where you absolutely need intensive heat mitigation and adapted breeding schedules to avoid calving disasters in the summer.
your location dictates so much.
It dictates so much of your operational reality. So your strategy must be custom fit to your map, your specific farm's resources. And fundamentally, you have to accept that successful dairy farming has evolved. It's gone beyond just commodity production.
It demands that strategic genetic and market portfolio management now.
treating your herd like the living, breathing asset portfolio it is,
Right.
which requires constant reevaluation, constant adjustment. Ask yourself honestly, is my current strategy truly optimized for my farm's unique map, or am I just kind of coasting on old habits? That self-assessment is critical.
Excellent points. Really practical advice there. Great points. And that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. For more articles and insights that help you navigate this evolving dairy landscape, be sure to visit www.thebullvine.com.
And don't forget to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss out on future deep dives into the topics that matter most. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Bullvine Podcast. If this episode sparked ideas for your farm, hit subscribe and share with your fellow dairymen. Check out www.thebullvine.com for more exclusive content. Until next time, keep milking success and chasing excellence.